Hi, this is Priyanka Chopra and you're watching Channel Y.
The biggest South Asian media group, Ymedia.
Ymedia Group, established in 2001, is a media company with a 360-degree approach in reaching our audience over 5 platforms: television, radio, newspaper, online news portal, and mobile app.
Midweek Newspaper, the biggest free English newspaper in Canada. From Parliament Hill to Queen's Park, the Ymedia Studios.
How did your meeting go with the Prime Minister of India?
I've sat down and had many conversations with Prime Minister Modi.
The leader of the official opposition.
Great to be with you, Mr. Jaswal. Thanks for having me. You probably have more viewers in GTA than they have in all of Canada.
I think we found pretty strong support.
Next election, we're going to win 5 ridings.
Ymedia at Liberal Convention in Ottawa. Ymedia at Conservative Convention in Quebec City.
It's great to be with you on Ymedia.
Ymedia at Canada First Rally in Ottawa. Ymedia conducts many political one-on-one exclusive interviews. Ymedia is the official media partner with the Toronto International Film Festival.
You are watching TIFF on Ymedia, the official partners.
Ymedia Group is here at Ground Zero at the 2025 Chicago Water Show.
Welcome to Ymedia. We are at the Port of Vancouver.
But you stay tuned with Ymedia.
Channel Y के entertainment for stay tuned with Ymedia special reports.
Reporting from Chandigarh, Channel Y.
Ymedia helps with connecting with the communities, creating brand awareness, and increases sales. Ymedia works with 100 plus international brands. Ymedia has also worked with 1,000 plus Canadian big and small brands. Ymedia Group, the fastest growing media group in North America.
Ymedia presents Ymedia Political Sensex. Ymedia federal election debates. Who will be the next Prime Minister of Canada? Tough questions. Affordability and housing. Crime and tariffs. Immigration. Tax and innovation, infrastructure, and more. Watch and listen on all Ymedia platforms. Stay tuned. Vote for the country.
Ymedia Group, the fastest growing media group in North America.
Hello everyone, my name is Ymedia Jaswal. I'm the group editor at Ymedia. Once again, it's time for election. Yes, April 28th, that's the day for our federal election. And we have some advanced data as well. They are on your screen right now. And as always, Ymedia has been holding up debates, and Brampton Board of Trade, they also do the debates. But this time it's special because Ymedia and Brampton Board, we have come together and we are holding the debates for Brampton. At this point, I'll also like to welcome my co-host, Jayapal Messi. He's the CEO of Brampton Board of Trade. Sir, a very warm welcome on Ymedia.
Thank you so much, Advir. Appreciate you being here. And as you shared, both Ymedia and the Brampton Board of Trade have had an interest in ensuring that those who are voting feel engaged and informed and get to know their candidates. So we thought this was an amazing opportunity for us to work together.
Yes.
We've both been doing this type of work, but hopefully together we can create even more dialogue and even more opportunity for those in our communities to get to know their candidates. So today we're here with the candidates from Brampton North-Caledon.
Yes, definitely. We did invite all the candidates as always, but it's only one candidate, the incumbent candidate for the Liberal Party, Ruby Sota. She's here with us, but I'm sure we invited everyone. But whoever didn't show up, that's fine. We would have always encouraged in any democratic setup, always encourage dialogue, discussion. Please.
Absolutely, and as Ymedia shared, we did invite all the candidates. We are pleased to have one join us today, and so what we have set up is instead of an open debate among all candidates, we have an opportunity for us to pose questions to the one candidate and get an opportunity to hear their answers, their perspective, and understand where they stand on key issues. So in order to make that happen today, we have a panel that's joining us as well. So in addition to myself and Ymedia, we have two members of the community who will also be assisting us in posing questions to the candidate. And so with that, I'm pleased to be joined today by Geraldine Aguiar, the CEO of Caledon Community Services, as well as Badar Shamim, past chair of the Brampton Board of Trade. Thank you both for making the time to join us today. And with that, I'd love to get our conversation started. And so I'd like to introduce the one candidate who did join us today, and that's Ruby Sota, past MP in Brampton North, now the candidate in the new riding of Brampton North-Caledon. Ms. Sota, this is your fourth election that you're running in federally for representing our community. You've been in office for about 10 years now. Why don't you introduce yourself for those perhaps who haven't had a chance to meet you, but more importantly, help us understand what it is that has you running yet again and has you inspired to serve our community.
Thank you, Jay Paul. I appreciate this opportunity to address all the residents of Brampton North and Caledon. This is an exciting new election for me. Although this is my fourth, it's very different because I get the opportunity to potentially serve the people of Caledon, and it's an area that has been growing vastly. Over the last few years, I've gotten to know the mayor, the city councilors, and really understand their needs as well. To me, being a representative is not so much about, riding boundaries, just like when I served Brampton North. There's a lot of work that I had done into this town of Caledon as well, where we were able to make some really significant announcements for the city of Brampton and for Caledon during that time. And so it's just a great honor really to be able to serve. I've prided myself over the years of serving with dedication and integrity in my area, but now I want to make sure that the residents of Caledon also understand that my door is open now during the campaign, but even after. I'm a very accessible member of Parliament, and I think that local connection is really important. I think showing up to debates is really important. Every year or every election, I've always been consistently showing up, and every time there are media requests as well, I'm always there to answer the tough questions without any conditions. And if you want me at your doorstep, if you want me there for a community event, I'm there. I've grown up in the city of Brampton my whole life. I was born in Toronto, but moved to Brampton in grade 4. And ever since have been a resident with a short stint in between, where I moved away for undergraduate, of course. I went to McMaster, studied international relations, and then went on to law school and practiced as a lawyer in commercial litigation and cross-border trade work. Worked in the U.S. as well, representing SMEs in the automotive sector when it came to trade compliance issues. And I think this election very much is about our economy, how we can expand our horizons when it comes to trade, how we can create and make Canada's economy the fastest growing economy in the G7. That is what Canadians want. They want their kids to have good opportunities in the coming years. And this is a challenge, of course, because we were so integrated with the US for so many years. It was a great relationship. We want to continue to make that a great relationship. But I think a little bit of the trust has been broken, so it is time for us to do things a little differently, create more industries here at home, and to expand our horizons abroad.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I love to, that little reminder that you're here to respond and answer the tough questions. We've got a few questions today for you, a couple tough ones, we think, and so we'd love to hear your answers. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Ymedia to pose the first question to candidate Sahota.
Sure, and before I do that, I would like to acknowledge, without blurring the lines, that yes, you do show up at the debates. I know 2015, 2019, 2021, and now 2025. And I'm a very strong supporter of dialogue. Brampton Board of Trade, a very reputed and respectable organization with all the panel members and the CEO himself over here. We would have expected all the candidates to show up, and I'd always encourage that. And I strongly feel about this, that yes, as a candidate, we should show up. So I wanted to mention that. And yes, you've been showing up even while you were a member of parliament or a cabinet minister as well. We spoke on very important issues. So without blurring the lines, I must acknowledge that. Thank you very much for coming here. One of the things that's very important these days, and I know almost every Canadian is talking about that, but in Brampton as well, and that's affordability. So what's your take on this? I mean, you've been in power for good 10 years now, the Liberals, so everyone is asking, what have you done for affordability? How the cost of housing is rising as well.
Yeah. So, of course, I get a more general question than that all the time as well, as to what has been done in the last 10 years. But what I do want to start off with is that times change. Right? So it's not that any one government's work is ever over. There are new conditions that come forward, and governments are there to respond to those situations, right? When I was elected in 2015, we could not have at that point imagined that we were going to be facing in 2020 pandemic. I don't think anybody could have predicted a pandemic. We had seen other public health emergencies in the past, and various consecutive governments, I think, were not as prepared as they should have been. We learned a lot from that pandemic, and we responded as best as we could to save our economy, to help support individuals and businesses, and that is something, government came in to support at that time. We have new conditions in place since the pandemic. So I would say that, you can never really look at these things as a 10-year period. It's every day is a new day, and there's a new situation, and even ever more so now with our neighbor down south, where we hear one thing one day and another thing another day. We need experienced leadership at this time. I strongly, strongly believe that we need people who can represent, that can take feedback from the public, from our businesses, from industry, from boards of trade, bring that feedback back to Ottawa, and also have a leader such as Mark Carney, who has dealt with crises in the past in various forms, whether it was here in Canada or in the UK. We have a similar situation. The UK was, at the time of Brexit, removing themselves from an agreement with the EU. This is a similar situation now, where we are having to refocus our trade relationships and build on good relationships Canada has always had with so many countries around the world. And Mark Carney has those relationships. A lot of us as members of Parliament have built good relationships. And so now is the time to build on that, to pivot, to create policies that are going to meet this moment. And in terms of affordability, one of the things for housing, the announcement that was made, I think, is really important, because every announcement that you're seeing Mark Carney do on this campaign trail, it's an announcement for that issue, but there's several different prongs, and one of the prongs that is very, very important is also building up our industries, creating jobs here at home. So even within the housing announcement, yes, we have the GST relief on first-time home buyers for new and substantially renovated homes, which could save people up to $50,000 on a home. But alongside that, we have investments that we're going to make into a new department, a new agency that is called Build Canada Homes. That is something that we haven't done for a long time. The federal government has really, decades ago, downloaded the housing responsibility to the provinces. The provinces since then have downloaded that responsibility onto the regions and the cities. And it's a lot. We in the previous government stepped up and helped with the Accelerator Fund to fund the city of Brampton, to fund the town of Caledon. I recently made a very big $14 million announcement for the town of Caledon as well. And that money is very important for them to be able to create the framework, be incentivized to create more density in certain areas, and plan for transit. Those are all key things. But now, on top of having the Accelerator Fund, which Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are completely against, although a lot of their members of Parliament advocated for that program, we are adding more things. I think there's a variety of things that need to be done to solve this housing crisis. And one of the really exciting things about creating jobs in industry is building more prefabricated homes. When I was the Minister of Economic Development for Southern Ontario, I got to provide grants and funding to different companies, and some of the most interesting companies I found were in this line of business. But when I spoke to them, they said a lot of what they're learning is from Scandinavian countries. Their climate is very similar. However, their market for prefabricated homes is a lot larger than ours. The brick and mortar type homes that we build are great, but I think there's room for expansion of a different type of housing, one that can be built 50% faster, 20% less costly, and one that can be therefore more affordable and accessible to first-time home buyers or new immigrants. Those things are really, really important in order for us to get to the 500,000 home mark that Prime Minister Mark Carney and the leader of the Liberal Party has announced. I think that's going to be essential for us to meet our housing needs and tackle affordability when it comes to the housing market, when it comes to housing.
Appreciate that, and on that, I appreciate you sharing the specific target that your party is looking to achieve if elected. A lot of experts have still indicated that mark is still a little bit short of what our country is going to need. What we're hearing out of the Liberal government, or the Liberal Party rather, is at 500,000 a year, we're looking at somewhere in the ballpark of 3 million new homes, whereas most housing experts seem to feel it's more like 3.5 to 4 million homes that we're going to require. How do you reconcile the differences between those numbers?
Well, from what I've read from most experts, they're giving a projection of what we need in the next 5 years or the next 10 years, not necessarily what they need in 1 year. And we've got to build up these industries. So getting back to the point that the money that is also gone along with this announcement, injections of funds into these industries so that we can create good jobs, we can use Canadian lumber, steel, aluminum, that's all really important. And the indirect benefit and of that will be that we're creating not just typical construction jobs, but manufacturing jobs as well, jobs that are really highly skilled and highly paid. The Canadians are really well suited, I think, in that kind of a sector, because we have some of the most educated people in the world, we have the workforce, and they just need the opportunity. And so I think with these types of announcements, we're hitting things on two fronts. So we will do the best possible. There's also incentives for builders. So we're not just talking about prefabricated, homes, but we're also talking about incentivizing private builders and getting into the market of building ourselves as well. We've done it for affordable housing, and we can do it for market price housing as well.
Much appreciated. For a little bit of different questions, a lot of topics we want to cover today. I'll turn it over to you, Geraldine. I know you have a question for the candidate as well.
I do. It's a pleasure to be here, Ruby. I'm here on behalf of Caledon Community Services, the largest social service agency in Caledon, and as well as Metamorphosis Network, which is a network of over 180 social service agencies. And so I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and my question is going to be around Peel Region is a magnet for newcomers, and the Caledon area of your riding is one of the most diverse tracks in Caledon. More than 52% of the population is born outside of Canada in Peel. In order to ensure that newcomers have the tools to succeed in their work and contribute to our economy, will you work with the incoming government to ensure Canada provides funding for settlement programs that is sufficient for the needs of the people who come to this region and hope to thrive?
Absolutely. For the last 9.5 years, I've worked side by side with different settlement agencies in my area. Shared building space with Punjabi Community Health Services, which is also a settlement agency, somewhat like yours. And I think it's incredible that the work that they have done over the years in settling people. It is very, very important, but it's also very important to make sure that we start targeting our immigration needs better and in better connection to our sectors. And that is something that we've done most recently as well. It's always been seen, things have been a little compartmentalized. It's always been seen that provinces know their labor needs best, and it is still true. It is still true that provinces know their labor needs best because Canada is a vast country with different labor needs and different types of sectors from one coast to coast to coast. But there needs to be better coordination, and I will work tirelessly to make sure that the federal government and the provincial governments coordinate better when it comes to bringing in temporary residents or permanent residents so they too can put their skills to use. Recently we did an announcement by the health minister about bringing back Canadians or those with American qualifications when it comes to the practice of healthcare and medicine. I think that is very important. We have lost a lot of Canadians to the US and they want to come back. For example, my husband is a key example of that. My husband's a doctor. He did his residency in the US and our roots were here in Brampton. Our families were here in Brampton, but we ended up staying out there for some time. That's when I practiced cross-border litigation work as well at that time. And we wanted to come back, but there were some challenges, all the tests and examinations and all of those things that are needed. So it's important that, you know, for those that really want to make Canada their home again and want to come back, that we make it easy and effortless for them so that we can also solve that need as well. Those are things that I'm hearing that, you know, newcomers that come, they also need the services in healthcare, but there's also newcomers that come with those, you know, skills. And so how do you, you know, how do you make sure that everything fits? And I think better coordination is needed. Things have been siloed for far too long, and I think that would be the best solution to providing what I believe are the needs of a lot of newcomers, because oftentimes what I hear from them is that the supports are great in terms of creating a resume or English language skills and all of those things, and probably, you know, navigating the first couple of months of their life. But essentially what everyone here in Canada wants is a good opportunity to put their skills to use and get a good paying job. That's what people growing up here or raised here want. That's what newcomers want. Everyone wants a thriving economy where they can feel like they're a contributor in society and where they also feel their children can get opportunities.
Much appreciated, and you've taken that question in the direction where we're going next, which is around job creation, the economy, and so forth. And I'll turn over to Badar to ask a question around, you know, the issue that, in spite of all the other things that are happening in our society over years, is very much the issue of the minute, and that is that of tariffs.
Thank you, Jaipal. So you talked about trade, and the current trade situation is highlighting a number of issues that Brampton Board of Trade of members have highlighted over the years. Red tape, higher cost of doing business, as well as a number of key elements of the supply chain actually missing. How will your government address some of those issues and build a more resilient economy?
Yeah, so this was one of our first announcements that Mark Harney did about the supply chain. There are many ways for us to strengthen our supply chain here at home. So once again, of course, this doesn't come without funding and supporting our key sectors. Even the tariff response that we've put in place to the tariffs that have been implemented at this point, we have stated clearly that all revenue, all funding collected would be injected back into the sectors that are hurting. I would like to mention a key point too, because there's so many workers that are probably watching this that are really nervous about what is going to happen to their jobs, because so many people in this region, in Brampton and Caledon, work in some kind of related industry, or they will be impacted by this industry. And so I want to, let them know that we're going to make EI more possible, but we're going to support their sectors. And at the end of the day, I don't think anyone wants to be on EI for a long time. They want to get back to work. And so we can use our resources and we can leverage our other partnerships across the Atlantic to be able to build our own industries back up here. Of course, we are going to have the conversations that are necessary with President Trump as well. You've seen Mark Carney has had those conversations, and we have seen a change in tone. We have yesterday again seen another reprieve, I guess, temporarily. I don't know how much emphasis to put on those things, but we're seeing things move back slightly in the right direction. But like I said before, the same trust is not there. So it is going to be important for us to be able to build up our own sectors and prevent things from having to go across the border several times before they're complete, so that we can secure a full supply chain here at home. It's going to take a lot of work, but that's why I said previously that we need experienced leadership, because I don't think a career politician with 3-word slogans is going to solve this. We're going to need really in-depth policies that have been tried and tested. Now is not really the time for populism. We've seen how that worked out down south. Things sound great at first when you say, we're just going to do this and we're just going to do that. It could sound great, but for every action you take, there is a reaction and a ripple effect. And quite honestly, the ripple effect that Americans and Canadians are feeling right now, with the cost of their goods are going to go up, and times are going to get harder, and the price of eggs are not going to come down, especially when potash is a really, really important mineral that comes from Canada. 40% of the world's supply comes from Canada. So I think we still have to work on those relationships. I think there is a realization that there are some things that are always going to have to be traded, but there's some things we can do better to make sure that we can, from start to finish, have a better chain of supply here. So I hope that answers your question. Some things, are going to have to roll out in the coming days, months, but we need to get to work. And in order to get to work and to have a strong mandate to try to implement these different changes, we need a strong government, and that is why there's an election right now, so that we can get to a result and then we can get to work. And I think we're all eager and ready to get to work to tackle this large issue.
I appreciate that, and if I can make a shameless plug, myself at the Brampton Board of Trade, I know my colleagues at boards and chambers across the country are engaging with their members on this topic. And there's a variety of opinions. To your point, there's a variety of mechanisms that need to be put into place to solve this. Everything from creating new supply chains to resiliency to supports for workers who may be laid off during these transition moments. But the one thing I will say, with consistency that we're hearing across any chamber anywhere in the country, is the desire to engage with government when it comes to the solutioning. So, my hope is that if you are successful, if your party's successful, or regardless of who ultimately is going to govern this country, that there's an opportunity for industry to come to the table and be part of the solutioning. We've been hearing some great ideas being put forward as part of this campaign, but I think in order for them to be effective, it's my hope that if elected, that you'll be open to working with your local businesses to help put these solutions into place as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some things that we have changed, like our leader, which is quite obvious, but there's some things that the Liberal Party of Canada will never change on, and that is a spirit of cooperation with all levels of government. You've seen that before. We've held more First Ministers meetings than any other government, bringing different premiers to the table. And since Mark Carney has been Prime Minister, he's had a few of those meetings. He's also met with the Canada-US Council, which is full of industry leaders to try to help us get to the right solutions that will work for Canadians when it comes to this tariff war. And so we will continue down that path. That's one of the first conversations I had with Mark Carney over the phone is making sure that good ideas are implemented and making sure that lines of communication are open, whether it is to caucus members or to different parts of the country. It's really important that we build a strong Canada together in a united fashion, and that we care about all the different national projects across the country, and so that the results can be beneficial for all provinces and for all Canadians. And so I also think the environment for that type of cooperation is, this is a good time for that, creating that environment. It's already been created by Donald Trump to some point, right? We've had a difficult time, and Canadians have asked me, why did we not have better interprovincial trade? Well, provinces wanted to put up trade restrictions to protect certain sectors, but we had freer trade with the U.S. Due to our, NAFTA, CUSMA, USMCA, whatever you want to call it, agreement. But there was hesitation coming to the table before when it came to our own interprovincial trade barriers. That hesitation has decreased drastically. They are coming to the table, and I think industry is coming to the table. Even industry that at times pushed their province not to put up some of those trade barriers to protect their sectors and industries. I think they all understand now at this point that it can't be all about their industry. It's got to be about our, overall economy. And we've got to all work together, from fisheries in Atlantic Canada to the oil sands, and all the different industries in between, lumber, automotive, everyone's got to come to the table, and we can't just have one winner. So we have the environment. Sometimes, unfortunately, it takes a crisis situation to, bring everyone to the table. And I think we've got that now, and we're going to take advantage of it in a positive way and make sure that that delivers results now for Canadians. And we do things very differently as a result of that.
Thank you. Turn it back over to you, Ymedia. I know there's a few more questions we'd like to ask the candidate.
Yeah, I had a different question in mind.
Please.
But now the conversation that we just had, I'm directed towards a different direction now. There's a lot of discussion now. I was looking at different newspapers. Where does China stand? Who will be the winners out of all these trade wars? But more importantly, for all us who are watching this debate, where does Canada stand among all these things? So now my question to you is, we want to understand what is the broader vision for Canada, for you, your party, your leader right now, in the immediate 6 months, 1 year, 10 years, or 20 years. I've been, highlighting a situation also on my radio shows and TV shows, and the other day was on CBC with Matt, and I highlighted this situation. Imagine 10 to 15 years from now, China says, in the Arctic region we have a dispute, and we have, submarines with nuclear weapons there. Where does Canada stand there? We're a G8 country, and our productivity, our economy, our per capita GDP is lower than even Australia. I think we could be even poorer than the poorest state in US, Mississippi. So what is that vision? I want to understand that, because you just used a very good word that this challenge can work to our advantage. I believe that. We can become a global power, if not a superpower. So I want to understand and discuss that thing, because you've been a cabinet minister. You could be a cabinet minister again. So I want to ask that question to you.
Canada is a G7 country. I'll start from that position. I think for some time now, there are things we can work on, but I think for some time there has been a lot of negativity about Canada. Canada is still one of the most desired destinations for people to come, and I'm sure in your settlement services you see that day after day. Whether someone is top of their field in another country, they are still eager to come and make Canada home, because Canada does have a standard of living that is unmatched in most places in the world. And so I think we do need to recognize what we have. We have a stable democracy. which is incredibly important. Although there are leaders like Pierre Poilievre that have said things within their campaigns that I find are against the democratic spirit. You know, having campaign slogans about trust in polls or in our system, talking about the notwithstanding clause, applying things like that. I think that deteriorates the independence of a lot of our institutions that have been trusted for a long time. So Canada, in that perspective, is a world leader. And economically, we have strength beyond our numbers. Our numbers are quite small in terms of population, but we have punched above our weight for a long time, but we could do even better. With the right leadership in place, I believe we have so much more potential to reach. We had a really great trade relationship with the US. We benefited. We benefited quite a bit from having the strongest economy as our neighbor. But we also, you know, were harmed in some ways too with having a neighbor with loose gun laws and, you know, really high crime rates. And a lot of that, the repercussions of that also flowed over our borders. So there's some challenges with being next to the US as well. And militarily, I would say that we've also benefited. But now, in many of the announcements that you've heard Mark Carney make, there's a new vision. There's a new place for Canada to emerge, and it's exciting. I think it's incredibly exciting. We do need to beef up our Arctic defense. We made a huge announcement around Arctic defense missile system, creating an Arctic force. Asserting our presence in the region is really, really important. Creating better procurement strategies with the EU, that was just announced the other day. That is very necessary. It'll also help build up our defense sectors and industries here, once again, creating good paying jobs here in Canada. There was an announcement in Halifax on our Navy. That's really essential. We have so much coastal water, more than any other country in the world, fresh water and coastal water that we have. We are so rich in resources, but we must also protect those resources. And that's why, given the current world order and the change that we are seeing, it's more crucial than ever before. And a Mark Carney-led Liberal government will make sure that defense is prioritized, that we get to our 2% NATO spending by 2030. That is just in a few years. We're already going to, according to our platform and many promises we've made, and I'll remind viewers as well, after our first mandate, in terms of the promises that were made and kept, we were at the 90% level and ones that were worked on. There are things that have happened since that time that were not necessarily in the platform or whatever, and we've had to pivot. This is another time where that pivot is happening in the middle of an election. And so we're able to put forward to Canadians this new vision and the way we're going to do things differently. And this is a big, big part of it. And also, once again, with the submarine procurement that has been mentioned, with our fighter jet procurement that has been talked about, with more Navy ships, that can also help build up our industries again. Lumber, steel, aluminum. If we do things differently and make sure that certain percentage of all of these procurement strategies are from Canadian resources, then that will create an economic boom in the years to come. It'll take time, though, because it does take time to build up industries. I'm not trying to sugarcoat and say that it's not going to be tough to transition, but if we transition with bold plans, bold leadership, and good ideas and experience, then Canada is best situated in the world to tackle all of these issues.
Just a quick 10-second feedback. Yeah, I like all those words. So there's a great, bold. Yeah, we have to be bold enough now. We might, we've left out Russia now. Instead of G8, now it's G7. That's fine. But the new world order that you just used with China, Russia, once again, getting very close together, and the new world order where China is rising. I think we need to see our position. Where do we see Canada economically? Where do we see Canada in terms of military? And very importantly, one of the final frontiers where the next generation war will be fought in terms of technology. where do we see Canada? We need to create all these three visions, and I think we need to understand more. That's the feedback as well. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great feedback, and we'll inject more into our tech sectors. You're right. Because of that integration with the U.S. and that partnership, there are sectors that have been neglected, and those sectors will not be neglected anymore. Those sectors will be primary in getting us to the vision that we have, the vision that we're presenting on a stronger Canada, on one that has prioritized its defense, and along with that, our economic, our manufacturing sectors, whether it is aerospace, and I'll let you know that too, because MDA is right here in our backyard, that since the Liberal government had come into power, they saw an injection back and an interest after a long time in space, and that had not been shown under the Harper Conservative government for a long time. It had been ignored, and I think those things are all important. AI technology, making sure that we have patents right here at home, with the Aero Car project that we funded, that was long overdue, to be able to create a car here at home with Canadian technology, Canadian researchers. And just before this election, I was in the works of another collaboration with universities and researchers and industry on humanoid projects. I think that is really important. China is way ahead when it comes to this. So there's so many technologies that we lack patents in, and it's important for us in Canada, or the government, to be a part of securing those patents so that technology can be used easily, accessible, and free to our industries here in Canada. So that's a key part of it as well, but there's so much. I could go on and on, like the platform will be out there, and it'll be available for people to flip through. There's tax incentives, there's so many different things. It's so hard to touch on all of that and the amounts.
And I appreciate that, and we want to give you the time, because as we've shared, you are the one candidate who made the time for us today, but I also want to ensure we get a few more questions in, just to give the viewers an opportunity to hear as much as possible. So with that, if I could turn it over to Geraldine to ask a follow-up question.
Yes, thank you. Ruby, I'm going to take the tariff question a little differently because of the perspective that I'm here at the table for, in terms of the community support sector. And we know that the nonprofit sector is a significant contributor to overall wellness in the community. And so the tariffs could have a significant impact on the 42% of Peel workers employed in sectors directly impacted by trade. While there has been talk about support for businesses and EI recipients, there has been little discussion about bolstering the necessary social infrastructure to ensure that its resilience in the times ahead. Will you support tariff relief plans that include funding for local nonprofit organizations that deliver community services in Peel?
The beauty of Canada, I would say, is that we look after our neighbor. That is what distinguishes us from the U.S., right? I've lived in the U.S. for some time. You can feel that cultural difference there. I do feel over some time in the community, as I'm having conversations, that culturally, sometimes we start to slip and get into that me first type thinking. But I think this crisis, again, has led people to understand and reflect again about what is so important to Canadians and what we are so proud of. And those are things like our national healthcare service. Yes, that needs to be improved. Yes, there's lots of steps to take, but universal healthcare is important to Canadians. We have rolled out a dental care plan that also helps support Canadians that do not have a private plan in place. That's not available in many other countries. There are also industries that are attracted to come to Canada. I know that a lot of the automotive sector companies will tell us that, it's still very lucrative for them to work here because the unionized jobs that they have, they all have universal health care and they don't have to pay for that. And so it makes it very, it attracts them to this country. And so we've got to do everything with a balance. And so I think our not-for-profit public sector is really important. You saw us during the pandemic step in, even beyond our jurisdiction, in provincial areas. We spent at that time, whether it was helping support the non-for-profit sector, charitable sectors, healthcare sectors, policing, local policing, you name it, our shelters, which are not a federal responsibility, our local shelters here. We spent 9 out of every $10 to step in and make sure that at that time of crisis, Canadians were supported and all sectors were supported. Of course, if the situation needs, we will be there to support that sector, because with that we can't have fulsome communities. In Canada, we are proud to say that we have a thriving middle class, that we've lifted so many children out of poverty with our Canada Child Benefit, tens of thousands in our region. And that's a big impact. We don't want to use that. We don't want to lose that. We're recommitted to the National Food Program, the school food program. That's a service that you wouldn't expect the federal government to be in, but it's really important no matter what background, what socioeconomic class, or what difficulty some families are going through temporarily, that their children have a good start in their school, that's really important. So I think by all of those things, that the Liberal Party takes a very balanced approach when it comes to these things. We will not neglect those sectors. It's incredibly, incredibly important to make sure that everyone thrives. And to bring it back personally, my husband and I came back to Canada from the US. The pay was more, for my husband. I always wanted to come back because I definitely felt like a fish out of water there, but the pay was more, but Canada was more important. And living in a society that is more inclusive, more caring of one another is important. My son goes to public school here in Brampton. Why do we insist on making sure he goes to public school? Because I think it's really, really important for us to all believe in our public institutions and to make sure that we are living side by side and all have integrated communities, because I saw what it's like in the US with rich neighborhoods and poorer neighborhoods, and even within the public school system, there's vast differences between these communities. So that's not a Canada that I would want to live in, and that's not a Canada that I don't think most Canadians would want to see. The reason I'm in politics is to make sure that we keep our Canadian values and we continue to make Canada strong with our public sectors and our private sectors.
Thank you, Ms. Sahota. And I'm going to turn it over to one last question in the interest of time, but we appreciate your candor on everything thus far. Badar, I'll leave the last question to you.
Actually, also over the last couple of decades, Brampton Board of Trade has actively promoted trade and investment diversification. Yeah. I want to congratulate your government on a successful conclusion of CUSMA as well as CPTPP agreements. Would your party now commit to reviewing and revisiting some of the existing agreements that are out there, as well as exploring new agreements with other emerging markets like India, like Turkey? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. We are ready to renegotiate CUSMA at any point. We've been ready, and we've made that clear. And when it comes to other trade agreements across the world, we have signed more trade agreements than any other G7 country, or we have more markets available to us and more population than any other G7 country. And that is because in the last 10 years, we've signed so many different trade agreements. The EU is a very, very important partner. We have been working with India. There are some protectionist tendencies still. There are some issues at the World Trade Organization that we've got to work through. Our companies do want protection and the ability to have due process when it comes to the judicial system if things don't go right. I know how that can happen, what can happen. I was a litigation lawyer when it came to dealing with breach of contracts between different countries and internationally as well. And it can be really, really cumbersome on companies. So that's why these trade agreements are essential. But the terms have to be agreeable, right? So we're going to work hard to continue to expand. I do believe that the focus in the world has changed. And other countries are also, extending that olive branch at this time, and they know that Canada has the institutions that are really reliable, have a good system. You're able to do business here easily without corruption and without a lot of the hurdles that other countries sometimes have. And so there are a lot of opportunities that come out of this. And that is why Mark Carney's first trip in order of business was to go to the UK, to go to France. We're going to continue building on those relationships, but of course create others. And he's got many of those relationships, and so do many of our former members of Parliament.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pause the questions here and give you an opportunity to make a final statement and give an opportunity for any last comments or thoughts that you wanted to share with the voters. But before I do so, we've gone pretty global. I want to bring the conversation back local just as we wrap it up. And in advance of you joining us today, the Brampton Board of Trade shared with you a draft pledge. And that's regarding public transit and specifically higher order transit in Brampton. In advance of the election, the current Liberal federal government announced intentions to conditionally support the tunneled light rail transit option through Brampton, a transformational project in public transit in the downtown of Brampton that would service the community as a whole. Among the concerns the Board of Trade has, obviously, is that in the event of an election, any change of government, that there would still be continuity of this funding. So we're asking all candidates participating in the election. We've provided a pledge, and the specific questions we're asking are, will you, if elected, ensure that the Brampton Tunneled LRT project is fully funded, that you'll work collaboratively with all levels of government to ensure the project proceeds without delay, and finally, champion infrastructure investments that reflect the needs and priorities of Bramptonians. So I'll turn over to you for your closing statement, but if you could please address the pledge, I'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'll start with saying this. In the last 9.5 years, every single project that has been brought to the federal level for funding from the City of Brampton has been funded. Every single one. That was at the point of having a proposal that came to the federal government has been approved and funded. And that's because you had strong representation on the ground, 5 members of Parliament that worked together as a team that advocated for all of those projects, whether it was Riverwalk, whether hopefully in the years, time to come, the BRT, but electric buses. We fully funded electric buses. I don't know any federal government that is funding local buses. This is new for federal governments, where we have gotten back into affordable housing. The biggest investment in the Peel region for affordable housing ever in the history of the Peel region has been made by our federal government, with no, without the province keeping up to their part, because most infrastructure projects are divided when it comes to the affordable housing. When it comes to the LRT, of course, the province has committed. We also have committed, and it's a really extremely important project to me as well. When I was first elected, this project was the hot issue at the time. It was 2 days after, I think a day after or 2 days after my 2015 election, there was a vote on this same LRT project with slightly different, requirements or conditions. And that funding was rejected by the city. So it was quite disappointing, I think, to a lot of different organizations that were really advocating. And it's nice to see it come full circle. There was a lot of work that had to be done at City Hall in order to agree on what type of project they wanted to see. And so I'm happy we've gotten there. It feels like, the big finale. And it was nice to be able to make that announcement. So I'm fully committed in working with the province and with the city to see this project through.
Wonderful. And any closing comments you'd like to make?
In closing, I'd like to say that as the representative for Brampton North over the last 9.5 years, once again, I have served and I've worked very, very hard. And in the years to come, if given the opportunity to serve Brampton North-Caledon, there are existing relationships, but new relationships I'm looking forward on building. I'm very open and accessible, like I've said before, and I promise to work even harder to represent this new region. And the reason I look at you is because you're from that region especially, and so I'm really excited. This is a new opportunity for me. It's a new, different challenge and new different priorities. And so it will be great to be able to continue to represent Brampton, but also a new region. And I ask the residents of Brampton, North-Caledon to put their trust in me. With me, you will get an experienced member, a dedicated member, a member that is not afraid to come debate issues, to come put my opinion forward, a member that you can get answers from, an office that will be accessible. And I promise to work hard and continue to create good relationships, whether it be across the aisle or across different levels of government. That's what Canadians expect, and that's what Canadians deserve.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you making the time. As we shared a couple times during the course of this conversation, having openness, transparency, and a willingness to engage in dialogue, we believe is critical as part of a democratic process, and we appreciate you making the time to be part of that today and opening yourself up to the questions from the panel and ourselves. These questions came about through solicitation from the community, our business members, and others, so this was really representative of what the community as a whole is looking for. And once again, we appreciate candidate Sahota for making the time on behalf of Brampton, North-Caledon to represent herself here and share her perspective with the viewers. Additionally, I'd like to thank, of course, our panelists, Geraldine Aguiar and Badar Shamim, for making the time to join us today and contributing to the conversation. And of course, my co-host, Ymedia Jaiswal, and the amazing team here at Ymedia. On behalf of the Brampton Board of Trade, thank you for making the time. And of course, ensure that you vote on April 28th or in any of the advanced polls opening up over the Easter long weekend. And with that, I'll turn it over to my co-host for some final words.
Yeah, thank you so much, the candidate from the Liberal Party. For Brampton North, Ruby Sotap, and you used the words openness, fairness. I'll just add one word more to that. Accountability is very important. And I've been very critical, with due respect, without blurring the lines, of all those candidates who do not show up. And though in the last 25 years on all media platforms I've said this, they say never, I won't be joining politics ever. But I always say, if ever I were to run as a candidate, the first job for my campaign manager would be to put me on all the media outlets, because I have ideas, I have discussions. So accountability is very important, and I'm severely critical of all the candidates who do not show up of any debates, not about Brampton Board of Trade debates or Ymedia debates, but anywhere. If you're not here at this platform, you don't show up today, what else are you running for? We're really disappointed. Yeah, well, we have some great panel members here. We could have had a great discussion, but thanks to you. All these debates will be broadcasted on Channel Y, which is available right across Canada on Rogers 857, Bell 828, Telus 2418, and Ignite 707. All these debates will also be available on Y+, which is a 24/7 all-English channel. It's available digitally across Canada as well. And also the pictures and a few important points will also be mentioned on Midweek newspaper. It's a free English newspaper, which is distributed right across GTA. You can pick your copy. But once again, I'd like to thank Chairpaul. Thank you so much to you and your entire team who's working very hard at the Brampton Board of Trade. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And these debates will be available on Brampton Board of Trade platforms as well. And thank you very much for your cooperation and support in helping make these happen. Thank you again to everyone involved. And thank you most importantly to the viewers for making the time to watch these important conversations. And please make sure you vote.
Thank you. That's all the time that we have today. Stay tuned with Ymedia. Thank you.
Ymedia Group, the fastest growing media group in North America.